done today. Hopefully today will be a little less of a stressor meeting and a little quicker, and we'll get out here. Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes and our agenda today? Well, man, what did you do there?
I was in Nashville when I got the email.
So I call a meeting of the planning board to order, and if had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting, I'll entertain a motion to accept those, unless there's any changes to it.
The only question I had is Rick made the first motion, and Kathy, did you second that motion? Do you remember, or was, it says Betty?
I think I did second that first one. Did you second? Okay. Yeah, I think that's one I did second that one.
So under the first motion that Rick Treveka made, Karen Tinsley, second.
Motion to approve as amended.
For a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. And then for our agenda today, any additions or corrections to our minutes? Just a reminder to everybody to cut your cell phone. Do I hear a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye. Okay, Paul, any liaison comments today?
Nothing other than thank you for what you do. I think we're going to get in other new business, a couple items I'll speak to.
Okay. Let's ride. Bobby, have any public comments? Okay, sounds good.
Introduce Mr. Joe Allen. He's an employee in our department and might be taking some duties that would be related to what's on.
So does everybody know Joe? Joe, you know everybody.
One wants everybody. Hey, Carl today. Everybody else.
All right. So, old business, we have none. New business, board commissioner requests.
I'm going to defer that to you, Mr. Gillespie, and discuss that with us, if you would please.
Yes, sir. Jack and I talked about the road that y'all had put forth in regards to reviewing the subdivision ordinance, taking that to the formally as a request of the county commissioners, and also the issue of the Macon County contractors license being laying dormant at this point. So both of those were brought before the board of commissioners, and he voted unanimously to task the planning board with both of those items. Contractor's license being first, simply because felt like that might be something that would move through rapidly and get make a recommendation on. The second being the subdivision ordinance, will take a little more time and the process that we have to go through with that. And in regards to that, Chester mentioned that he would get a summary of law that applies to subdivision ordinance, what can and cannot be included in those. Did you have that yet?
No, I haven't
So
seen
that will be forthcoming, but I think I speak for all commissioners and say they appreciate what y'all do, and need to kind of get these two things moved on through, because there's some other things coming behind this that we'll be asking the planning board for their input on. So we'll get stuff to come.
Okay. thank you, Carl. One question I have with, in regards to having a subcommittee for the subdivision ordinance, did any,
There's not a problem with that. Discussed that with Chester before, but, and I discussed it with him again this morning. And one thing he reminded me to say to y'all, and he said to make sure that when you're on one of these committees, or you're taking the lead, or your comments are directly related to something that may or may not be a conflict of interest for you, please recuse yourself from that. If you could have some financial gain by your decision or your statements, that is definitely a conflict of interest. That can be a problem for you personally, and it can certainly be a problem for the county. We're not going to dictate to you what we think is a conflict of interest unless it's blatant, so that the decision will be up to you. If there's questions that you have about that, please ask me. And if I can't figure it out, we'll get Chester to figure it out. So, that being said, your subcommittee is good. Still, they can make decisions, they can make recommendations, and bring it to the board. The board will still have to decide, digest, and either swallow it or spit it out.
and Tommy was on what it wasn't, was you at the last meeting? Okay, so Tommy was on what it wasn't here from the last meeting, idea of having a subcommittee to work on the subdivision ordinance, was to have some folks who were more familiar with that, go ahead and do a little bit more of the meat of the work and bring it back to the full planning board. Hopefully be a little more efficient and effective. Instead of it dragging on, we'll be able to finish that quicker.
Who would call?
It should be.
It's me.
Chris Sanders, Evan Harrell, Aaron Garrett, and Bill Meister.
Mr. Chairman, that being said, I would like some information. I've got some information that I'd like to pass out since we don't have much of it tonight. And I'm sure that the planning board's not ready to dive up to the middle of any one of these tonight. So what I'd like to do is hand out some information to give you just the base understanding of how we came up with the grading license to begin with, and so you can understand the process. Okay. Okay, let's just hang on.
Is it good?
There's several things included in this packet, and they're not numbered, but I'll tell you how to rank them.
I've already done one day, these are
I can guarantee you.
You guys, do you like some of that stuff?
Are you talking about the
I'm sure you get some other stuff like that.
Sleep in them? That's the one that I handed out. And Joe's got a pack there that he's handing out.
Make sure you approve this. rearrange this is the old, instead of the old one, sedimentation erosion control, put that on top. Next is the February 27th letter to Ronnie Beal. Next behind that will be a letter to Jack Horton on May 5th. Huh? You don't have that. Everybody else gets one.
You got a Jack Horton letter?
Oh,
No, I don't have, well, I do now, Joe gave me his copies.
You don't have it, just sound off for each one. The next one would be the Macon County Board of Commissioners, March 10th, 2008.
I think that's awesome.
You have anything? Should be at least the meeting that day. Yeah, that's it. All right, Joe. Did you get a copy? Yes.
I did get a copy. I made sure I had this before.
Okay, thank you. All right. This is the first ordinance that we had, sedimentation land control, sedimentation, soil erosion and sedimentation. If you look under 15301, this was passed in 11/5/2001. So this has been around a while in Macon County. That's when we first started participating in the program. Now, how we got to this was, if you look on the next page, which is actually 47, it's under your second page. In the second column, you'll see a definition, approved operator. And that is a person who has successfully completed at least 6 hours of approved training and erosion control and has received approval from the administrator for land. I got these licenses, so forgive me a little bit. For land disturbing activities up to 1 acre in extent without land approval. Okay, you see that? They can receive approval for up to that. And if you look on the next page, which is 50, one of the requirements for this was a set of plans, 153.20A1, no person shall initiate any land disturbing activity which uncovers more than a half acre without having in effect an erosion or sedimentation control plan approved by the county, unless the person conducting the land disturbing activity has been certified by the administrator as an approved operator. So there was an advantage to having the approved contractor status, because if you had it, you didn't have to submit engineered plans if it was between a half acre and an acre. And if you've ever done much grading, that's a bit of money. So there was an advantage to that. Well, when we rewrote the ordinance the next time, which was in 07, that was taken out.
Which, do we have that? I'm
No,
sorry.
we don't. The commissioners and the legal counsel at the time felt that the approved contractor gave a connotation that the county did not care to do. Of course, they're saying, we approved Carl Gillespie, and he goes out and makes a messier place in the county. Said, we approved this gentleman to do the work. So they didn't like that. We took it out. Everything's going to be much repercussion to it. Well, there was. The contractor did not like that we took it out. So our liaison, my department's liaison, was Ronnie Beal. And told Ronnie Beal the problem, and he said, we'll tell me what the solution is. And this letter, at February 27th, 08, from Mr. Beal, is from me, and outlined this process that we would license contractors by way of an exam. If they had one of the old approved cards, they wouldn't have to take a test, otherwise they'd have to take a test. If you look at this, it's under I propose the following. It talks about the license, about the exam. The next paragraph is about renewed annually with continuing education, connect with the fee, which is nothing, $50.25. Then there would be the next paragraph, not required to provide a plan for any project containing less than 1 acre. In the next paragraph, there would be a $500 fine if they did not comply. On the next page, it did not apply to owner contracting. In my opinion, the next paragraph was that I think this would be fair to contractors who have been approved by Macon County before the ordinance removed the approved condition. It is also fair to contractors new to this area. And my statement was, I'm not sure the language up to the Board of Commissioners to do with this is that. But Ronnie put it on the agenda. Mr. Horton asked for clarification. He was the county manager at the time, because he had to endorse anything that gets on the agenda. And this next letter, March the 5th, is explaining that to Mr. Horton. And the reason that you have so many documents here is I don't want to leave anything out of this. I want you to understand that legitimately we had this program in place. All right, and this is the letter to Mr. Horton telling a synopsis of what it meant. Let's face it, the county managers cannot be in tune with everything that every department is doing all the time. This is not possible. So he needed to know what was going on with this thing, why it was such a big issue, and that explained that to him. Right, last but not least, well, it's not last, but the next one is the minutes of March the 10th, 2008. The third page in. What were you doing on March the 10th, 2008? Third full paragraph down is where I made a presentation about this very thing, which was presented as it was. The next paragraph outlines it. The next paragraph again talks about continuing education. Pretty much verbatim is my letter to Mr. Beal. And on the next page, about a third of the way down, we had said upon motion by Commissioner Simpson, seconded by Commissioner Beal, the board unanimously voted to proceed with the proposal as presented. So we have followed that process until back in winter, was it, or spring? When the commissioners decided to put that program aside for a while to re-examine if it was still necessary. Some were concerned that it was an undue process, too heavily regulated the grading contractors. Some grading contractors says, and they come to our office, you can ask Amy, she's one of the first people you meet when you come to our office. Grading contractors, some of them project said that they can't read the license and don't know what happened to the program. So that's why we're doing this now, while we're considering this. The next handout you have is just a copy of the step exam from the other guys. It's an open book. We furnish the materials, the test. They can take us all day if they need to. And the purpose of this was to give back to the contractors that expense of having to have a engineered plan from a half acre to an acre. And not endorsing them as much as it was, when we use the word regulating, I hate to use that word, but it would require them, rather than regulation, it would require them to adhere to the sedimentation erosion control ordinance standards, or we could remove the license, or fine them. Nobody wants to be fined. We would never fine anybody. That's not the purpose of this. The purpose is for compliance. We want people to comply with the sedimentation erosion control ordinance because it's good for all of us. So here we are. I would recommend, highly recommend, this is just a recommendation of mine, that before the planning board makes a decision whether they think this program needs to be reinstated, we work differently, or done away with, that you open up public input from the contractors that is the regulatory phase.
Okay. And add one thing, I think it's important that in any business that the planning board conduct, that if you don't have a copy of it, Jack, you get your copy, you need to refer back to the planning board mission statement, because that's, you're not going to be bound by that mission statement, and that mission statement delivers some consistency and through decisions that are made through different people that sit around this table. So, you know, I really encourage you to read that mission statement and understand what it is, because that's what you're here to do, is to hear that mission statement. So when you go through these things, sometimes, you know, I struggle with what decision we need to make, and I go back to that mission statement, because that's what we're here, we're regulated, that's a good word for it, that's what we need to use as our regulatory authority until that mission statement is changed. So pay attention, I would encourage you to pay attention to that mission statement.
Does anybody have any questions pertaining to that?
Is there a protocol for getting input from the contractors? Is there a protocol for how we do that?
We might have.
Up to a regular planning board meeting?
Yep.
We'll have to have a public hearing.
No. This would be just like a public input session.
I know probably some who would rather not come speak and would rather voice their opinion to keep what you would bring back to the full plan.
And some people have already issued a response in writing that I have acknowledged, which is public record, and it will become part of your packet when you get underway with this.
Jack, do we have a list of current Macon County grading contractors? Could you email that to all the planning board members?
Yes, it is.
That would give everybody an idea of who currently is a licensed grading contractor in Macon County.
Nobody else.
Or was.
So you mean it's already been done, that,
Yes, the commissioners voted to rescind it for the time being. That's before you were, before my time.
and,
Oh, that's not us.
and just go over their thinking for me on that. What is
The expense for.
To the contract?
Yes. And it was just a way of making money for our department that we should.
Where's the bag?
Yeah.
I think that was the question, where's the bag?
That's,
And that perhaps some didn't understand, you know, where the value is in being a licensed grading contractor. And then, you know, you don't have to do anything if it's under 1 acre. You just go out and do what you need to do. So the $25 or $50 is a pretty good deal to be able to.
So now this is just actual land that you're disturbing is less than an acre. So for somebody wanting to do a house site, well, I said, a big house is not,
well, they'd still have to be a licensed grading contractor in Macon County unless it's their property.
it's under an acre.
It can't be any size.
And you have the.
They just don't have to submit an erosion control plan.
Yes.
And that, the acreage does add up whenever you start talking about house site, driveways, septic.
Well.
You think of a 3,000 square foot house, you're really disturbing quite a bit of area.
Yeah. Something like that.
Go ahead, Carl.
But this thing was a tool to use to help folks comply with erosion control. That was the issue, is erosion control. And this was just a tool to educate, not to create a revenue flow or create an additional burden. There was a real issue at that time with erosion control. As the economy picks back up, it'll become more issue again. It has evolved, everything's going, but that's kind of what it was for.
I've got a quick question.
Yes.
Whether it's a good question or not. That's the land aside, just south of Ruby Settles. Was that done by license? Macon County license grading contractor?
Yes.
Okay.
And like Carl was saying, at the time, this was more of an issue when we took it out of the reading ordinance, unknowing just not really thinking, I guess, at the time, the planning board just didn't really consider all the ramifications of moving it. That was when it was when gangbusters here, and anybody, your credit card could go to the dealers or anywhere and rent a piece of equipment and go out to Ben's house or Tommy's house for hire, and he'd say, yeah, I can put you in a road, a driveway, a house site, what do you want? And because the waiting list was so long for the guys with reputations, they would do that. They would hire people that had no reputation at all, and didn't own the equipment, so rent it. And leave a mess for us and the homeowner. So this was as well thought of as a way to prevent that.
So, in your opinion, did that work?
I think so. It's really hard to say if you did or didn't, but like I said, we've never issued a fine because of this, and we've, in my opinion, our notices of violations have gone down all the others. For instance, the reason I showed you this test is based on the Sedimentation Erosion Control Ordinance and North Carolina Sedimentation Erosion Control Field Manual. A lot of guys have never seen one either until they're required to take these tests. This is what I've never seen this manual before. Okay, and what standards are you using to control your erosion off your property or the sedimentation in the stream? Some guys are pretty sharp at figuring it out, but some not so much. But at least it makes them aware of the law and regulations and that they are responsible.
I have a school teacher question. Was there any ever difficulty with a person perfectly capable of doing their job but had trouble taking the test? And is there some assistance there for them to read or to?
We offer that verbal if needed, and like I said, it's not a time test. Just sit there all day if you want to. And if you're lucky, you can take it again, I think, in 10 days. As many times as you want. So, it wasn't that we were trying to prohibit anybody.
Right, I just want to make sure they had help if they needed it.
Yes. And some people, as well as I do, have test anxiety and just freak out just at the word test. And some people have a little problem reading comprehensive that they're really good equipment operators.
Right, that was my concern.
But they manage.
Did this program have is there any connection one way or the other between this and, I guess it's a North Carolina contractor's license with a $30,000 threshold?
This did not replace that license.
And that license didn't,
So it's just required for over $30,000.
okay. And so that had nothing to do with meeting these requirements. It didn't give you a free pass, so to speak.
It could. It's up to you guys.
And in the program as it was operating.
No, as it was, it did not.
So even if they have that license, there's like rules penalty for the fact we still have to take this and do this.
You did, just like everybody else.
That's just what I thought it would be.
Well, and we thought it was fair that way.
Because the goal of this program was familiarity with Macon County's sediment erosion control.
Yes.
That makes sense.
So the only exemption is a homeowner?
Yes.
And then is there an ordinance that established the test procedure and the guidelines for the test?
No.
Because this is all just recommendations that I read.
That's all it ever was.
So the license is based on recommendation and not ordinance?
I
I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'm
No,
sorry.
you're not, but it was based on, at the direction of the county commissioners and that, and it's March the 10th. They sent it to it. It was never put in sedimentation erosion control ordinance. See, we proposal as presented.
So first I heard about it was when we met with the commissioners, and I believe it was Mr. Higdon that said, well, you wanted us to think about it, but then it was after that, we rescinded it.
You never rescinded it to prior county commissioner.
But why didn't he come and say he wanted us to look at it? or didn't he at that meeting?
It seems like the idea, the message I got was that the commissioner would probably ask you guys to do.
Oh, okay. Just the order of that, I just wanted to get that order.
Oh, you're the only one that asked the question.
So basically, everybody else is going to have.
Yeah, feedback from the county attorney,
Well,
the license, have it, not have it,
thanks.
is it legitimate, is it not legitimate?
Do you think it needs to be in the ordinance?
It needs to be a board.
In the ordinance.
If we're gonna do it.
If we're going to do it.
So why wasn't there, just never got around to it, or just the
Well-
recommendation was approved by the commissioner, did it feel the need for it? or-
That was above my pay grade. If you look back at my letter to Mr. Bill, I said, I'm not sure of all the language that would be included in the ordinance, or if the ordinance could refer to the license process approved by the board of commissioners, or approve the county commissioner to put a system in place. I guess, probably yes, that would need to be obtained advice from the board members or the counselor. And with the commissioner's advice received, and what the council did after that, I have no idea what the council did. They want, just to be blunt, they want this community to suggest you don't.
Any other questions? So, well, we got a little homework to do for the next one.
Should we go ahead and some of the contractors that I know, ask them to come to the next meeting? Or should we wait?
I think that would be good for the next meeting if there's a contractor that has an opinion one way or the other
Let's go ahead.
and wishes to speak to address their concerns personally, and they come and talk to contractors and they say, I won't be there, but here's what I think.
I really don't think official letter out of it, so you have to address as well. I think something not to go out to everyone, just so they get the information. I mean, we can talk to it too, but
I'm sorry.
We need a time and a date for that meeting, you can send the letter out. If you want to do it to the next meeting, that's fine. I just need to hear that that's what you want to do at the next meeting.
Does that propose any legal notification issues by specifically notifying a group and not the whole community? Just a question.
We posted in the courthouse as well. No, I have a problem with that.
I was just saying for someone to say, well, I didn't get a letter.
well, it's not a hearing, it's just that we're asking them to come for public input.
If they would like to come and voice their opinion, we'd like to do so. But we'd like everybody to do that. The announcements, or not the announcements, in the Franklin Press, there's a list of all of the things that ours is on there. So it's not that we're meeting in secret to begin with.
We'd like to have a letter sent to all previously licensed grading
I think
contractors
that'd be on the fair way, so they would all have to say,
and invite them if they would like to speak at our next meeting on June 15th. Department of Resource Center, 5 p.m. is when it will be their opportunity. And they'll have a maximum of 4 minutes.
And I'd advise them to invite anyone else that might have interest.
I would suggest that maybe you have something in mind, though, when you invite them to come.
someone to talk about the next meeting, and have them come in July.
That's wrong too. But what are you going to ask them? And I'm not being confrontational, but what questions are you going to ask them to consider?
Me personally, was this program beneficial to you as a grading contractor? Was it restrictive, prohibitive, or good for business? Just right off the top of my head, and hopefully, if they come in, somebody has to say, this was burdensome and cumbersome, and too many hoops to jump through, which don't seem like it was. Whether they say this was a great program, and, you know, it kind of weeded out the folks who would just be out here making a mess, trying to make an extra dollar on the side.
Listen to those out at the planning board wants us to do that, but just be thinking about what you're going to pass and hear from them. Because I may tell you that Jack Morgan is very about you down.
But will,
If you want to hear that, I hear it every day.
do we need to make that a motion in order for you to send that letter out?
Sure.
Okay, so I would entertain a motion that we send a letter to all the previously licensed Macon County grading contractors, letting them know of the meeting and the item that we're discussing here of the contracting license. Is there a second? Any discussion?
Yes, I would ask that you also add to that you request me a motion.
Okay. So Freeman, any
One motion.
second by Aaron. No other discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed?
We need to have some refreshments. I have copies, Dean's made copies of the subdivision ordinance. If anybody wants a copy or needs a copy to work on, we'll be thinking on too, because that's going to be on the back burner. And just received today, it says it went yesterday, a copy of the Human Services section that the health department and social services and the Department of Aging recommended. I would like for y'all to look at this. Give you a copy of that. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
You get the first one.
First one, all right. Won't be left out of this go.
Get one.
Did you get the education?
I've got it.
Yes,
Everything in.
Got an interest? Yes, no?
Pretty thick.
I'll tell you what, they know how to have meetings, because they have a bunch of them. There's a lot of meetings involved in that. That's all I got to say about that. And, did I say that before, Mr. Chairman?
You sure do.
On the agenda, it says Jack Morgan questions from the planning board. The questions that I have, this is in no way confrontational or accusatory. But as a member of the technical review committee, did we do something wrong in our decision to deny Ridgetop Estates their subdivision based on road widths?
My opinion is that the first thing that should have happened even before it came to us was it should have gone to Chester Jones and let them make a decision about whether they had a point about the road. That's the only, and I've struggled for the last month with what happened at that meeting. That's the only issue that I have.
And again, the reason I ask, if we're doing something wrong, we need to know what we need. And again, please don't take that as an accusation. So, I guess my next question would be, the reason that you voted to approve it was because you felt that they had standing as a place. They had standing as a subdivision.
As a member of the technical review committee, I felt like the attention was brought to the roadway. And I think upon further review of the ordinance, that the question really should have been, was it a road? Because if it was an existing road, the ordinance didn't apply to begin with. I think the case that was made by Mr. Howard and Mr. West was that it was an existing road. And I think the evidence that was presented showed that it was an existing road. So I think for me, based on that paragraph of the ordinance, it was an existing road. Is what led me to my decision.
And based on what I understood, the reason the technical review committee turned it down was because of the road. So the road was the issue, and I look at it some way, Chris.
If the ordinance didn't have an exemption for an existing road, then I think all paragraphs of the ordinance should apply as the 10-foot road width. But I think because the ordinance has that paragraph, existing roads, it's like, it was like one of the first or second paragraphs, and I think that right there is the property. Now, how do you define an existing road legally? I guess maybe we should have asked that question on the side. But the GIS certainly thought it was an existing road. County mapping did.
I asked this because there will be more that will be people that review. You know, if you feel that we're making a mistake.
Well, I'm really concerned, like I said, I'm talking about that, not setting a precedent. I don't want to set a precedent. I mean, I would like it to be, and I wish in hindsight we could in the motion that it was because of this one specific reason. That it wasn't that we were going to rubber stamp everything that came through, but this one specific reason was the reason that we voted the way we did. And I wish that were in the motion.
I mean, the way that ordinance reads, and you can go back to the purpose of the ordinance to establish, we could read the paragraph, but the purpose of the ordinance is basically give the county an idea of growth. Kind of map, here's what's happening where in the county. And if you, this goes back to review the ordinance, but if you read that first paragraph, if I had 500 acres along 441, I could subdivide them if I used all my access off of 441. And the county has no authority or control of the subdivision of that 500 acres. If the access to each lot is off of 441. But I think if you look at the purpose of the ordinance, I think it's prudent for Macon County to know that those parcels are being subdivided. And that the access, even though the access is off of an existing road, I think the county still needs to know that subdivision is taking place. So I don't know that, I guess what I'm getting at is maybe an exemption to an existing road isn't the right thing. And I think maybe that's what needs to get. I think this is an example where providing an exemption probably worked against what the intent of the ordinance was.
And I think, Jack, as a vote of confidence to you and the technical review board, the planning board wishing to have the commissioners task us with reviewing that is not to put y'all in more tough situations with the planning board later. Not that depends on which side of the glass you were looking through. Personally, I'd like for us to table the issue.
I think it should have been tabled and referred to Chester Judge. That's what I would believe.
But we did vote to grant them to move forward with their subdivision. And hopefully we can get more clarification and make, Because like you said, there's gonna be more of these. Unless the
Oh,
bottom
that's-
drops out of the
that's-
economy here in the near future.
If that existing roadway is what throws everything out of balance, then there needs to be wording to say that that existing road should meet certain criteria. That should be in. I mean, just because it's an existing logging road don't mean it's a good road.
And I wonder too about safety or whatever that may come down from the state, and I'm not advocating necessarily, but some of those may override what's in our current subdivision ordinance. In other words, whatever that fire safety code or what have you, will we have a choice to make a road at a certain width, or will it come down and override anything, a road width, for example, or so I think.
That's kind of a muddy conversation.
Mhm.
There's some indices in the ordinance for that, and there's some adoption by the county commissioners that are required, and then the fire marshal has some interpretations he can make, and so it's really a muddy, that's a muddy conversation.
Well, it's out
No,
of the blue for me. I just
no,
wondered,
it's-
when they mentioned it or when I read it, I just didn't know what those kinds of things, what that might, down the road, what might happen.
The other thing just to keep in mind, not to get off a tangent on the subdivision ordinance, but if we start making 20-foot wide roads, we have that much more fill and cut that has that much more environmental impact. And so, while it's nice to have a big wide road to drive on, there's environmental.
Well, I've heard that.
More land
argument.
disturbance for
Yeah, I've
those
heard
grading
that argument.
contractors on their erosion sediment transportation control plans.
Well, regardless of it, I mean, those standards, you know, are out there to uphold, I guess.
There is a good argument on both sides for the road standards and the road widths. My side of this has always been that the fire code was written by people in Raleigh, and it's pretty doggone flat down there. And coming up here in the mountains and saying that all roads have to be 20 foot wide, it's just like, well, let's go to some places that is impossible. Unless you want to just kind of hack the mountain down, and you know where these places are. They're all over the county. So do we want this big scar on the side of the mountain so we have a wide road? So you're gonna have to decide when you review this subdivision ordinance, that very thing. Kathy's brother, Al was an advocate of the slope development ordinance, which never got any real traction. But that would address a lot of it. But still, if I want to put a road up there and I have to comply with the subdivision standards, and it's stick with the horse's face, as they say around here, it's going to be ugly. You can see it from the money.
When people, and we don't have a real estate person here, I guess, but when people buy lots up high like that, I wonder how often our real estate folks get questions about, can an ambulance get to me? Can a fire truck get to me? Or future homeowners think that way, or they don't, or I'm curious.
It's amazing to me that some people end up buying the properties they buy, okay? And after the big land, what I call the big land grab in Macon County was over, I got some very irate phone calls from people that had bought lots sight unseen. So maybe they think there's a financial advantage and they don't care what it is sometimes. And sometimes people that have lived where it's flat all their life, they get to the mountains and they get the fresh air and they can see where you fall that way and white side that way, this field right here. You never thinking how when you got here.
They look, they come to lots, I look, I paid 10 grand for this lot. That's what cost you $100,000 to get your foundation in.
Yep.
That's, it's a popular conversation.
It's human nature, so to answer your question, Kathy, I couldn't put some people when they purchase a contract. But it's our responsibility to make sure that they're safe. I don't know.
Mr. Chairman,
Don't know if they're on there.
Yes.
I was actively involved in this document. This document was, the main thing that we tried to do with this document, one of the main things was to keep in mind health and public safety. It was not done to create a hardship. You can certainly interpret some of it that it would create a hardship. But it was loosely written to give some flexibility to prevent that. You know, we kind of talked about the roads deal, but, you know, it says that it shall meet the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code for the road width and be 60, no less than 16 feet wide. Well, the reality of it is you can't always get roads that 16 feet wide. And we had the fire marshal at the time, who was the current fire marshal, involved in that and came up with some alternatives, pull-outs and things of that nature, to still be able to provide that person that may not be familiar with the mountains of western North Carolina that would come here from XYZ city and with the assumption that they're going to get fire protection, but you know, fire protection, even though they're building on what some that are familiar with the area would feel like would be not a reasonable place to build a house and then expect somebody to get their community burned down. So you know, there was a lot of time and effort went into doing that, and that was kind of what this document.
Well, I knew about some of the hard work that went into this, and I just personally, when Mr. Coward held it up and said the bad document, I kind of just threw my head back and like, well, that, I thought, well, I'll be familiar with it the next time I come in. I haven't studied it, but I was sort of put off.
I should go back and read some of the minutes from some of those meetings. Just leave it at that.
We'll vote for 45 minutes and I would be.
Oh, really?
Is that all 45 minutes?
Didn't speak against it.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm a little more familiar with it.
So, and I appreciate Orville coming, and I appreciate him speaking, and I appreciate his input. But it, you know, at the end of the meeting, the planning board chose to do what they did, so.
And Jack, I don't in any way to make you or the technical review committee feel like I think we're not doing a fine job. The road just won't bother me.
That's not the sense we got. We just want to go if we made a mistake.
I think it's probably the consensus of the board that no, we did not. But the fact, part of this subdivision existed before the ordinance and was exempt from the ordinance. And then they subdivided some more of the subdivision, which technically,
The whole length of the road existed before.
So would a wiser course for all of us would have been to say, we need more time, let us table this and talk about it? I mean, would that?
if that comes up again, Kathy, and we do not have to make a rush decision.
Okay.
And that may be a wise motion to make at the time, or it may be more cut and dry if we have one coming next month.
Okay.
But I think going forward, as a planning board, to think what is the best course of action for us to take, and maybe not make a rush vote. I believe some of us were ready to get out of here last month. We voted yea on whatever the next motion that came up was, just to be honest with you.
What is that?
All the decisions you guys have to make on the, some are, some not.
Any other questions for us, Jim? Does anybody else have anything, any business coming on the planning board?
Do we have to establish a subcommittee by vote, or can Joe just appoint that?
Joe can appoint the subcommittee as long as it board agrees to him to have.
Less than 6, we can kind of meet whenever.
You know, a lot about yours, like there is the commissioner. Whatever you want to, like I said, just your decision. Just know that your decision is not final.
Absolutely.
I have a question, just going back to the comprehensive plan. This is a draft, we're supposed to read this.
I would appreciate your comments on that.
Okay, and I just sent mine by ours, by email. You got it. Should I have printed it out for everybody? Okay,
That arrived to me by email. I just printed it out. I got it by email.
okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. This is clear.
Jack was going to be ready for me and Kathy to.
Probably July, to be honest with you. Not to make any excuses, but I've got a lot of things going on right now in the county. And then when I get to this, I will be able to spend time with that and not going every direction. So probably, you might expect some of that from me in July. I'm not thinking the commissioners really like it. I've had a community about 4th of July.
Okay, so our next meeting date and location, June 15th, right here at 5 p.m. If nobody has anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And last motion, Gary Garrett second. All in favor? Aye, with. Any motion, stay, you say here all